The Sobriety House. By Michael. The Sobriety House. The Sobriety House. Family drama. Peter and Jessica were madly in love until tragedy struck inside the sobriety house they were residing at. In this series of the Sobriety House you'll see how mental health and addiction take hold of a person and test boundaries like never before. The Sobriety House. The Sobriety House Book Saga Book 1. Introduction. No good deed ever truly goes unpunished. Truly, it is never easy dealing with the battles that the mentally challenged have, but being more aware definitely helps it get easier to combat the negative stigma. So, before you judge someone, remember that we are all human, just like you, so show human kindness and dignity to others. Without any further ado, The Sobriety House. Chapter 1. Uncontrollable Peter. Peter Mulligan walks out the room, slamming the door drastically hard, cussing and yelling, telling everyone that they are some damn fools. What the fuck do I even care, they don't know me. As Peter mutters, angrily walking to his room. Peter is a tall, frail-looking kid, who stands at a height of 6'2", with long black hair, which is always slick back and greasy. People sometimes called him skinny or lanky. Every time somebody called him that, he'd pitch a fit, get belligerent and become explosive. Diagnosed with intermittent explosive disorder, Peter had uncontrollable rage and anger inside him that at times he would get violent and so uncontrollable. Peter is 19 years old, Caucasian, has massive hands and feet, a birdcage chest, with long gorilla arms, and ears the size of Dumbos. The most noticeable feature that Peter has is a set of the softest, prettiest baby blue eyes you have ever seen on a person. Peter is the new kid that just moved into the sobriety house on 78th Street. Recalls Jessica. Peter slammed his room door closed hard. Peter went straight to the radio clock and turned it all the way up at full blast. Thinking quickly, Peter ran straight to his closet, grabbing the things he would need to bolt the room door shut. 2 days earlier, sometime in the morning when everyone else was asleep, Peter was smoking a cigarette while walking the labyrinth in the backyard and had found some plywood, nails and screws when looking into the shed and brought the materials to his room. Water began to flow down Peter's cheeks as he ran to the bathroom sink. He then proceeded to turn on the faucet while he set his attention to his reflection in the mirror for a little while. Peter rarely recognized who he was anymore or how run down he had looked. Deeply looking inside his own eyes, listening to suicidal thoughts playing on the radio by the Notorious B.I.G., he rants to himself, saying, "I'm a fucking failure, just a fucking alcoholic, fucking drug addict, fucking loser." Peter began to have racing thoughts, as he was bipolar, making him diagnosed with 2 mental illnesses. "I need to release this pain, and let them feel this pain I feel. My soul hurts. I need to release all this hurt I feel," as Peter fearfully states while viciously crying. Immediately, Peter's thoughts went back to when he was picked on and bullied. Growing up as a kid, I had enough. Peter shouts, as he glides his left hand into his left back pocket, knowing that he can count on his trusted comfy combat knife to guide him and get him through this terrible night like it has done on previous nights before. Tonight was different. Jessica rambles. "What do you mean tonight would be different?" The officer interjects. Meaning tonight he will be cutting his arm completely sober, due to the sobriety house rules which included randomly alcohol and drug testing. Jessica quickly blurts out, "Sally Sheffer is the sobriety house manager, and has been running the house for 6 years now and liked to be addressed as Miss Sheffer because of the power of Miss, which made her feel like an important woman. She is a red-headed Caucasian with freckles on her cheeks, and had deep sunken brown eyes. She was always styling and profiling with her miniskirts and dresses, wearing way too much makeup on her face. Every day, all day, you can catch Sally looking in the mirror fixing her face, applying mascara, black eyeliner and red Chanel lipstick. Miss Schaefer's makeup was always the topic of discussion among all the residents living in the sobriety house, which, in turn, gave her the nickname Cake Face. "Peter," Sally calls out while lightly knocking on his door as she pushes and knocks on the door even harder and louder. "Peter, Peter." Miss Sheffer started wondering why Peter was not answering her. "Peter." She awaits Peter's response, but he never replies to her. She turns the door handle, but the door won't open. "Huh, that's strange, why won't this door open?" Talking to herself, wondering why she could not get the door open. Terrifying thoughts ran through her mind as she suddenly became panic-stricken. Screaming, and cussing at the top of her lungs, Peter, you had better open this goddamn door right now or else your ass is out of here. I'm not kidding, mister. Try me if you want, your ass will be packed up and kicked out, buddy. All night you have been trying my patience, working on my damn nerves. I will not hesitate to throw your white skinny privileged ass out of here. It is midnight, so please turn that damn music off right now or else your ass will have nowhere to sleep tonight, buddy. I damn sure mean that, and I will not refund you your security deposit and rent money back that you already gave for this month. Nothing but silence from the other side of the door. Peter never responds. Jessica states to Detective Anderson, I swear I could hear the sirens welling from down the street in one ear, and Miss Sheffer yelling in the other ear. The fire department pulled up to the house first. The paramedics and the ambulance bus came flying in next. Seconds later came 4 police cars, totaling 12 first responders at our halfway house. Chapter 2. Jessica's Revenge. I swear I could hear the sirens welling from down the street in one ear, and Ms. Schaefer yelling in the other ear. The fire department pulled up to the house first. The paramedics and the ambulance bus came flying in next. Seconds later came 4 police cars, totaling 12 responders at our halfway house. I don't know what Ms. Schaefer told dispatch mom, man, I swear I have never seen the police have that quick of a response time like that before. Man, did they come quick. Jessica Hernandez stated to her parents over the phone in conversation. Come on mom, you got to check me out of this place. Ms. Schaefer is literally killing us in here. I never met someone so cold and mean before. As Jessica deviously smiled. Girl, give me that phone, Antonio Hernandez said, snatching the phone out of his wife Beverly's hand. Jessica, listen to me. Now you know your mother will not budge. Nor would I condone your disrespectful ways. You are my child and need help. It is my job to raise you, and I'm not raising a foul-mouthed, disrespectful young lady. You hear me, Jessica? Jessica pulled the phone down from her ear, looked at the screen cold-heartedly, rolling her eyes, then replied. Fuck you, Dad, I hate you. You left us, so why don't you go back to your whore Charlene Maples' house for the night and leave me and Mom out of your life? Jessica hung up her phone and threw it at the windowsill, shattering the glass window. Jessica lets out a loud yell. Fuck, as she frustratedly screams, I hate this house. I'm going to party anyway. The appearance of Jessica is strikingly beautiful, as she has a caramel skin tone color that illuminates with glow whenever she is sober and med-compliant. Her hair is long black and braided into 2 thick braids that go all the way down to her lower back. Naturally, she is athletically built, and as short as Gary Coleman was. At 4'8" and being Mexican and black, she was always a fast-tempered, hot-headed prima donna with a little person complex mentality. Her eyes are hazel green with a cute little button nose, a full set of lips, and had a killer body from working out every day. Her stomach was toned and rippled with rock-hard abs, creating a nice little 4-pack. Jessica prided herself on her body. She was slim-waisted, with thick hips and massive thighs. Humongous breasts with oversized buttocks, just like a stallion horse and the calves of a yoked kangaroo. Jessica literally is the youngest resident living inside the Sobriety House. All Jessica could think about was turning up for her 19th birthday bash this weekend she was planning before her mom and dad checked her into the Sobriety House to live for the next 3 months. The police were in the living room talking to Miss Schaefer, trying to make sense of Peter's apparent suicide, when they heard the loud shatter of glass sounding from the back area where the residents' bedrooms were. Miss Schaefer screamed, "What the fuck?" They all ran to the back of the house, and upon entering Jessica's bedroom, they quickly noticed Jessica standing on a chair. Then suddenly she hurled her way up the window sill, trying to crawl out the window while trying to escape the Sobriety House. The lead detective, Andrell Anderson, leaps on top of the dresser to quickly grab hold of Jessica to snatch her back through the window. "Hey, get your hands off me, I got somewhere to be in an hour," yelled Jessica, as she swung her arms and legs trying to get away, striking Detective Anderson in his nose with her right foot. Anderson stumbles backwards, shocked as he was caught off guard by Jessica's kick. Blood gushing from his nostrils, he commanded Jessica to freeze, and to put her hands up in the air. Jessica remained defiant and was inches away from freedom when suddenly a burst of adrenaline bolted through the detective's body faster than a lightning bolt, giving him a burst of energy as if he was still a young pup. Anderson grabbed Jessica by her left foot, then gripped her ankle and yanked her leg forcefully in the opposite direction, changing her momentum in stride, stopping her dead in her tracks. Anderson's grip on Jessica's left leg was firm and aggressive, pulling her back at the window and spoiling her plans of departure. Detective Anderson was an old-school no-nonsense type of detective. He called it like he saw it. He came from the school of hard knocks. He is righteous and takes no bullshit. Let's say if you were his partner, and you stole drug money from a gangster on the streets, he would literally have you hold your hand out, just to shoot his .50 caliber hand cannon at it and blow your damn hand off. As well as any other officer on the force that was implicated in the matter. Or say, for instance, you were having problems controlling your kids' behavior at school. He was the type of detective that would encourage kids to ditch school, just to catch them in the act and end up spending all day with them laughing, joking, and having fun. Detective Anderson always knew when someone was lying to him and had something to hide. He just knew in his gut that Jessica was a lying manipulator. Listen, young lady, I don't have time to play games with you and question you all night, but what I would like to know is how Peter got the knife. Anderson asked. With a quick response, Jessica calmly said, "How should I know you're the detective you tell me?" Anderson knew that Jessica was stalling, and this interrogation was getting nowhere, so he told her that she was not a person of interest, and he would release her, but only to her parents. Wait, parents. No parents, it's going to mess everything up. I'll give you what you need to know. I'll give you anything, just do not call my parents. Jessica pleaded. Anderson laughs with a big grin on his face, stating what Jessica just said. No parents, that'll mess everything up, and you'll give me anything I like to know, just no parents, huh? Did I get that correct? So tell me, Jessica, did you give Peter the knife or did you kill him yourself? Chapter 3. Anderson's laugh. Detective Andrell Anderson was an old-school no-nonsense type of detective. He called it like he saw it. He came from the school of hard knocks. He is righteous, takes no bullcrap, and is the son of a pastor. Back in his glory days, Detective Andrell Anderson was an All-American fullback, a linebacker in college playing football for Chester State. Being a Chester County native and resident, he was committed to dominating and to bringing a championship back to the city and state. Renamed the Mack Truck, as referring to the way he disrespected the whole league by running over all the other opponents that they had played. Anybody who tried to stop him got run over, and everyone Anderson went to tackle got laid out. His first season, he broke 3 school records, ranking number 1 still to this day. Everyone knew Anderson was going to the league as the number 1 draft pick. At 35, it has been 15 years since his ball dream days ended. Anderson is a massively bulky, muscular, short African-American Haitian man. In fact, he was born in a foreign country as his pastor father fell in love with his Haitian mother, while stationed in Haiti on guard as an American naval officer with the United States Navy. Anderson has a noticeable figure, and everywhere he goes people instantly recognize him whenever he enters a room. Anderson is so short that when he stands on his tiptoes he could pass for 5 feet 7 inches tall maybe, but standing regularly, he is really more like 5 feet 5 inches tall. The width of him is the real reason everyone notices him, weighing a solid 245 pounds with a large pot belly hanging over his pelvic region. Somehow, what is mysteriously odd is that his stomach is super solid rock hard when you touch it. Growing up as a boy, the school kids used to be cruel and mean to Anderson by teasing him, calling him names, saying that he was 9 months pregnant and was about to pop. Anderson rocks a clean-shaved bald head, and has a baby smooth face, a pair of tiny beady brown eyes, some bushy thin black eyebrows with 2 slit-cut marks in the middle of his left eyebrow. Detective Anderson's lips are small, making his mouth always look as if he was poking them out at you. You can't tell how freakish an athlete he is or how strong he is by looking at him. Detective Anderson's characteristics consist of optimism, openness, hopefulness, faithfulness, love, peace and positivity. If you knew Anderson well enough, you would argue that he was sort of passive-aggressive and very religious with political aspirations for the governor's seat someday. Truly a family man who would do anything for his American side of the family and had no dwellings on any of the Haitian side. They had bad blood, making Anderson very much dislike them because they were all into violence, gangs and drugs, which gave him no choice but to cut them off, for they would put his career at risk with their unlawfulness. Anderson deeply honors respect, value, and believes the code of law and expecting that his police would honor and respect the oath that they had taken when they graduated from the police academy and got their badges. Integrity, loyalty and respect are all it is about. Let's just say if you were his partner, and you stole drug money from a gangster on the streets, he would literally have you hold your hand out, just to shoot his .50 caliber hand cannon at it and blow your damn hand off. As well as any other officer on the force that was implicated in the matter. Or say, for instance, if you were having problems controlling your kids' behavior at school. He was the type of detective that would encourage the kids to ditch school, just to catch them in the act and end up spending all day with them laughing, joking, and having fun. Detective Anderson always knew when someone was lying to him and had something to hide. He just knew in his gut that Jessica was a lying manipulator. Listen, young lady, I don't have time to play games with you and question you all night, but what I would like to know is how Peter got the knife. Anderson asked. With a quick response, Jessica calmly said, "How should I know you're the detective? You tell me." Anderson knew that Jessica was stalling, and this interrogation was getting nowhere, so he told her that she was not a person of interest, and he would be releasing her, but only to her parents. Wait, parents. No parents, it's only going to mess everything up. I'll give you what you need to know. I'll give you anything, just do not call my parents. Jessica pleaded to Detective Anderson. Anderson laughed with a big grin on his face, stating what Jessica had just said. No parents, that'll mess everything up, and you'll give me anything I like to know, just no parents, huh? Did I get that correct, Jessica? So tell me, Jessica, did you give Peter the knife or did you kill him yourself? What are you talking about? I was Peter's only friend here. You should be talking to Miss Sheffer about who killed Peter. Last time we all saw him, he was in the last group as he flipped out and went ape shit on the entire group. That's when he was alive. But when Miss Sheffer went into Peter's room, he was dead. Jessica definitively blurted out her mouth. Detective Anderson grins. Then he laughed again, stating, "If this is the way you want to play it, young lady. Well then, let's play. You're free to go, but trust me, young lady, I always get the last laugh." As Anderson laughed out loud vindictively, Sally kept her distance from the investigation, as she damn sure wasn't trying to speak with the police officers about Peter's death, knowing that she should be sitting in a jail cell for what she had done 8 years ago in Chester County. Life was different for Sally 10 years ago. A former drug addict prostitute, who hears voices and has PTSD, surely seems like she got it all together at this point in her life. Slowly her mental health was unraveling, deteriorating, and quickly disintegrating bit by bit, piece by piece, since Peter stepped into the sobriety house. If it wasn't for that, goddamn Peter, I wouldn't have to be back on these meds again. I have to hold it together. If they find out I am not who I say I am, I will lose everything. I will not go back to jail or live in the street again, like I was in Chester County. I'm glad Peter is dead, but now the police are all around the house investigating his death. What am I to do now? Sally mumbles, staring at the picture of her dead twin sister on the wall. Shaking her head, saying to the picture, "This is all your fault. If you had never tried to help me when I did not want your help, you'd probably still be alive, but no, you insisted I get clean and get off the streets, making me go to that sobriety house for a year. So it is your fault that you and Peter had to die. Not mine," she burst out loud, saying. If only she could go back to the days when it was just her and her twin sister playing in the park, liking the same boy, arguing over him, wondering who he was going to ask out first. The doorbell rings as it brings Sally back to reality. She shifts her eyes from the picture to her room door and yells out, "Who is it?" while the lady outside the door replies, "Girl, open up the door, it's me, Tanya." Sally heads to the bathroom to clean her face, and screams, "It's open, come in." "Girl, what the hell happened around here? And why are the police, EMT, and the fire department here? Didn't I tell you to keep things in order while I was gone? I left you in charge, with the house in order. I come back, and the house is in total disarray and chaos." Tanya Animatic Alley says to Sally. Nervously, Sally Schaefer begins to speak. "Well, well. Where should I begin? As soon as you left, not an hour had passed, and we had a scheduled intake for a new resident, who was Peter. Let's just say that he was no typical resident. He was totally messed up, and a nut job. That kid was seriously angry and depressed. He should never have been here." Chapter 4. Phone tag. Antonio Hernandez knew his daughter was a loose cannon and was totally a lost cause, but he felt like he owed her to do the right thing and be her father, to protect and guide her through life. When the fact is, Beverly was already pregnant when the two fell in love the day that they had met at the bodega his sister was running. It was really faith that led him to the bodega that night. As kismet as it was a random thought that came to him to stop by and help his sister with a few things 7 years ago to this day. Oh, how the memory hits him, like a hammer to a nail, how a young Antonio and a dazzling Beverly were on the dance floor cutting up all night long, laughing and cuddling in each other's arms. Oh, how things have changed, said Antonio, shaking his head. Wondering how it led to him not standing to even be in the same room as Beverly, let alone to pretend to be a father to a disrespectful child who thinks she knows everything and acts like she's your highness. To hell with this shit, the hell with both of them. I don't need this broad or this child. I think it's time to call my police officer buddy to see how I can cash in on that policy that I've been putting together. Yeah, now's the time, Antonio mummers, as he picks up the phone dialing his police officer buddy from Chester State Andrell Anderson's number. As the phone picked up to Andrell's heavy Haitian accent, he answered with a strong hello. Antonio speaks in a business-dealing demeanor. Hi, yes, I'm looking for Andrew Anderson. Well, that was his name when I directed him to come to law enforcement, but I think his name is Detective Andrell Anderson now, I would presume. Anderson pounces in suspicion as to no one calls him Andrew Anderson anymore. A matter of fact, no one uttered the name Andrew Anderson since the day he left Chester State on a stretcher with a broken jaw, fractured ribs and a torn ACL the night of the homecoming rally. Antonio always felt like he was one to blame for what happened to Andrew that night, all because he could not keep his hands off Andrew's girlfriend, so he had his gang brutally tortured and beat Andrew for 2 hours that night, so he'd get the point that he was the one who controlled the city, not Andrew, who was going to be a big hotshot NFL player making millions. But Antonio is the feared leader of the largest gang in Chester County. Antonio, knowing the ball was in his court, had the upper advantage over Andrell. He asked him if he had ever got to make that $1 million he'd be wiping his ass with while drinking champagne on a 150-foot yacht. The hairs on Andrell's neck stood up as he knew instantly who it was on the other end of the phone with him. Anderson, clenching his teeth, vowing through the phone that he would find and hunt him down and his gang for what they had done to him years ago. Antonio, with a confident response, replied to Andrew's hostility with rage and told Anderson that he would soon have his chance to make due on his promise, but there were more pressing issues that needed to be discussed, so he told Andrell he needed his help and he was the only one that could help him. Why the hell would I help you with? Andrell projected. See, there you go, thinking you run things again. You don't learn. Can't you understand that I'm the one who runs things? Even if you have a badge, you still work for me. I still own every inch of this city, or have you forgotten? Just because I'm not calling shots anymore doesn't mean I still don't pull strings. You get me, detective, so you will help me, because if you don't help me you just might not get to see your daughter or that, sorry, of a woman, Beverly, ever again. So do I have your attention now, detective? Andrell felt so weak, dropping to his knees, tears coming out of his eyes, knowing his family's life was in danger from this sadistic thug who was talking to him on the phone. What is it that you need my help with? Andrell groaned. We'll see. I need to literally disappear, and I believe you can be the one to make that happen for me. If you can get me out of this situation I am in and happen to be that man, I need you to make me disappear where no one can ever find me. Then I can get you that $1 million you've been chasing your whole life. Maybe not the yacht, but for sure, I can help you out by providing you with $1 million and the safety of your family and you. But you gotta make me disappear, like totally off the grid. We're no police. The FBI, CIA, DIA, IRS, or alphabet government organization will be able to track, trace and/or surveillance my whereabouts by means of wiretaps and undercover officers. They had been interchanged, heavily building a RICO case upon Antonio and his criminal gang. They were watching his every move, watching him around the clock, trying to find and get something to stick to him. Andrell lets out a loud whistle, then replies, "That's one big tall order request coming from Mr. I'm untouchable. Mr. I'm the man of the city. Mr. Antonio Hernandez, the leader of the biggest criminal gang in Chester County." How do you figure I can do that for you? Andrell spits out, because you're going to kill me, not literally but figuratively. In their eyes, I will be dead. Antonio quietly states, then hangs up the phone. Chapter 5. Heart to Heart. Jessica was in pain when she woke up. Her leg was really sore from when Detective Anderson snatched her back from the window. Grabbing the pill bottle on her dresser by her bed, she turns on the light, opens the bottle and puts 3 in her hands. The Norcos without any water. It had been about a week since Peter had killed himself, and Jessica kept replaying the memory of seeing Peter's lifeless body, sprawled on the floor on and over her head, wondering why she even got involved with Peter in the first place and what was it about Peter that made her heart melt. With a little bit of sadness, tears formed in Jessica's eyes. She managed to reach for the tissue box on the nightstand, grabbing a couple of tissues and began to wipe her face and nose. I'm not going to stay here in this house all day and be sad. It's my birthday bash today, so it's time to party. Just as Jessica wipes the tears away from my eyes as she states to herself. Jessica put her legs on the bed and tried to take a step, but her leg gave out on her, and she floated right back on the bed. I was so angry she couldn't move. She snatched her phone up and down Detective Anderson's number. With fury, Jessica stated, I'm cursing his ass out. Who the hell possessed him to forcefully put his hands on me? Jessica was cut off with a hello. Who is this? It had better be important because I don't have time to waste, Detective Anderson said. Well, I don't have time to waste either, replied Jessica. I have got a bone to pick with you. You know I can't even get out of my bed, after what you did to my leg. I'm in so much pain right now. I promise I'm going to make sure I sue you in the police department for forcefully yanking me through the window, hollered Jessica. I saw relief come over, and Detective Anderson heard Jessica's voice. This Jessica, I'm glad you called me, just the lady I needed to speak to. How I may help you today, as Anderson gave his response. What do you mean? How can I help you? You literally broke my leg? You are going to pay for that, as Jessica spoke with anger. Hold on, Jessica, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to stop you from leaving and getting the help that you need. I hope you can understand that I didn't mean you any harm and that I'm sorry that I harmed you. You should let me make it up to you. Are you able to meet me today at 12 o'clock for lunch? Might be beneficial for you, and, oh yes, happy birthday. I've been meaning to give you a call all morning. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Jessica, I'm here to help you and to get you the help that you need, so please have lunch with me today. Detective Anderson calmly discussed it with Jessica. Jessica is furious and wants to hurt the detective and make him feel the pain that she feels from her leg, and irrationally tells Detective Anderson, what the hell do you mean beneficial to me? Like hell it would. You be lucky you are police. Or I will be at your front door right now, mister. I don't play these games. You don't just hurt me and get away with it. What are you going to do to me? For me to make it up, I need a payment from you. If you give me a payment, I'll meet you at 12 o'clock for lunch as you asked. The quick response from Jessica left Anderson happy because he knew he would see his daughter today on her birthday and be able to maybe start a relationship with her, so they can make up for old past times that he had missed. Oh, how much Detective Anderson wanted to be in her life, wanted to let her know that he was her dad and to let her know that she was special, and she was a person to be loved. Anderson felt like a failure and told Jessica again that he was very sorry and had to meet him at 12 o'clock for lunch, and she would be happy that she showed up and met with him. He also promised that he would pay for what he had done to her by giving her $1,000 for college tuition, then hung up the phone, looking at her picture and feeling hopeful while crying with tears of joy. Jessica I received the directions to the taco shop Detective Anderson Center and got a ride from the house manager, Sally Schaefer. The time was actually 12:12 when she pulled up to the taco shop, seeing Detective Anderson standing in front of the establishment holding a big happy birthday sign with balloons and flowers. Jessica thought to herself, he can't be serious, is he? Sally stops the car and asks Jessica why she was meeting with Detective Anderson, and she starts getting agitated, thinking Jessica might not be able to be trusted. Jessica turns to tell her she has nothing to worry about and that she was only meeting with the detective to recruit some compensation money from him hurting her leg the other day. Jessica opens the door, steps out and looks at the detective, yells, "You idiot!" and that he looked like a crazy person standing in front of the establishment like that. Detective Anderson smiles and laughs, handing her the flowers, then hangs the sign up and tells Jessica that he is the owner of the taco shop and that he was glad she was able to make it, leading her inside. Do you like the establishment, Jessica? Detective Anderson asks. Yes, I do. Actually, this would be a perfect location for the birthday bash, articulating in Jessica's brain. Hey, you know what would really make my day if you would let me hold the birthday bash here? I'm sure this is the place to hold the establishment and is where the bash should be held. The taco shop was a mighty fine taco shop. It was fancy, upscale and great for entertaining large crowds, top superb food with authentic homemade dishes that was to die for. A great big dance floor with the DJ booth and strobe lights, had a microphone, and band set up 5 flat screen 7:2 LED screens and a back room that had all the music equipment you can dream of. Right at the end of the hall there was a photo booth, and as you work down to the garage there's a large open space that has catering set up for outside dining and a full bar and wine service setup. Once you get to the garage and open the garage, you'll be surprised as it was filled up with a lot of different interesting and cool things. Like it had an advanced game system, a lot of books and literal information. Fun board games, dominoes, cards, pop-up tables and coolers with 3 stacks of foldable chairs. Yeah, the detective was pretty happy with his little establishment. Chapter 6. Cat and Mouse, Cops and Robbers. After completing the first step to the insurance policy Antonio had been working on for the past 3 months now, he quite honestly didn't know how or even when he was going to use his ace in the hole, but he was getting anxious while waiting to make his play. Antonio has been watching the feds watch him for the past 5 months now. He had actually never seen this coming, but he should have, since he was very reckless while running his gang over the past years. The feds first started watching Antonio 15 years ago after the night of homecoming at Chester State College. Scared, Antonio ponders over some unknown questions that are firing off in his head like bottle rockets on the 4th of July. Am I being set up? How long have they been watching me? And am I able to buy my way out like the last few times they indicted me? As Antonio shrugs his shoulders confidently, he begins to ramble. He said, "Okay, you really want to play today? All right, let's play." So in focus mode, he asked himself what district attorney would even prosecute me, since they were all on payroll. I don't really know when or why they had actually started watching me, but all I know is I had to get up from under this rock. The pressure was literally killing him. All he just needed was a little bit of information that they had on him or even let him know who was presiding over the case and who brought the case to the feds in the first place. But that said, it was too early to even determine the type of details, due to the matter of the old cat and mouse game. The early stages of an investigation that normally starts off as typical cops and robbers. Everyone can tell it was bugging Antonio tremendously. Antonio was becoming fully psychotic and irritable all the time throughout the days of the past 5 months, with him having so much rage and anger inside him. People hated being around him, he was pitiful being around, so no one wanted to be around him anymore. His gang shelved him and made him ride the bench. His downfall was so ugly to where it got to the point where Antonio couldn't get any sleep. The terrifying nightmares were too much for him to deal with. He started shaking tremendously. He knew he was in hot water. Antonio was a lot smaller these days, from 205 pounds 5 months ago to where now he weighs a measly 160 pounds, shredding a tremendous amount of weight due to a loss of appetite. His health was bad, and he was losing his senses, like he couldn't taste anything, so he stopped eating. His nostrils were always clogged up from the coke. He stuck up his nose all day, so he had no sense of smell, and he refused to wear his glasses, even though he needed them because he was losing his eyesight and was partially blind after a bullet had grazed his cheek and eye bone, rearranging his whole face. Seriously, literally he switched faces like they had done in the movie Face Off. His fingernails were always sore and in pain from him biting his nails all the way down to the skin. He was very nervous, as he should be, since this isn't just the average police force, but the feds that are watching him. To be known to Antonio, he was still unsure and did not entirely know if it was an inside job or not, but by his standard of law, everyone was guilty, as charged in his book, of the setup to get rid of him. Antonio picked up his phone and proceeded to punch in a memorized phone number he had been dialing over and over throughout the years when he allowed his daughter Jessica to get a new 2024 Motorola Razr foldable flip phone on his and his wife Beverly's cell phone account. Rang 3 times before Jessica picks up the call and says, "What, Dad? You don't have to call me anymore just because it's my birthday. There's nothing you can say to me that you haven't already said. I will never forgive you, and you can't make me, so you can stop calling and trying to make amends. Your little girl is gone. There will be no more idolizing a father who walks out on his wife and child while taking care of another family, running around in a gang at the age of 38. A grown man still running around as a child who had a child and mistreated his child and now is about to go to jail for a very long time since you have been indicted by the feds this time. No, you are not my father. My father is Father God who is in heaven. So I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. You can stop calling my phone, Dad. Bye, I'm hanging up now. Just as Jessica was about to push the end button on her phone, she could hear her dad saying, "Wait, wait, wait, baby girl. Please don't hang up. Please don't, I need to talk to you. It's a matter of life and death, and you're the only one that I know will come through for me, even though you have been in a lot of trouble lately. But I forgive you because you are my daughter, my very own flesh and blood with my DNA genes. I love you, Jessica, and I just want to protect you, but you don't ever listen to me." Antonio speaks, trying to manipulate the situation as well as Jessica. Antonio is a real control freak, so he loves to lie and manipulate to get over his favor by just using people, until he's done with them and then throws them away like a paper towel. He especially loves to control women. I believed in a polygamist ideology, but it was something about his egotistical attitude that always repelled Jessica from hanging out with him. Frustrated, Jessica smacks her teeth and says in annoyance, "What is it that you need to talk about, and what do you mean life or death? Where's Mom?" Irritated with Jessica's questions, Antonio calmly told Jessica that his street soldiers should be stopping by to pick her up, and she needed to go with them, so he could protect her and Beverly. "Like hell, I am," Jessica quickly snapped at her dad. "Jessica, this is no time for your shenanigans. Just do what I say, please, baby girl, listen to my instructions." Chapter 7. Back in the day. Frustrated, Jessica smacks her teeth and says in annoyance, "What is it that you need to talk about, and what do you mean life or death? Where's Mom? Where's Mom?" Irritated with Jessica's question, her father Antonio calmly tells Jessica that his street soldiers will be stopping by to pick her up and that she needs to go with them, so he protects her and Beverly. Jessica couldn't believe her ears, omitting and fumigating. Jessica let out a deep long sigh, then changed her demeanor and stated to her father, "Like hell, I'll go with you thugs." Jessica quickly snapped at her dad through the phone in a corral that he was not winning. Jessica this time was not the time for her father's shenanigans. Antonio instructs Jessica to just do what he says, and to tread lightly. Jessica. Antonio, her father, cries out. His voice was a soft and crackly voice as he spoke his next words. "Jessica, please don't hang up the phone, baby girl. Please, please, baby girl, listen to my instructions. You will thank me later." Back in the day when Peter and Jessica had first really fallen in love with one another and were talking about marriage and kids, things were simple and fun for Jessica. She was only using Peter, trying to manipulate him by tricking him into giving her a baby. Jessica didn't really love Peter at all. She never did. She had suddenly only wanted to talk to him because her friend said that his family is a gold mine, and they were strapped with millions of dollars in cash and the two hottest businesses in the city of Chester, truthfully the entire Chester County. Their family fortune was old money, they had millions upon millions stretching into the billions. The Mulligan family was a household name and had long money. In the days of the late John D. Rockefeller, Peter's great-great-grandfather, John Mulligan, made the family wealthy at 1891. At the young age of 16, a young boy, made him bold and confident. Peter was majorly rich and knew that if he had to rub some grease, he would grind some gear. Jessica's friend Stacy did not know much about family dynamics and couldn't have known that Peter and his father, Joseph Mulligan, had cut him off from the family's wealth years ago and that Peter hadn't talked to his family in well over 10 years. Truthfully, Peter kept quiet about the whole situation, letting everyone believe that he and his father had the closest relationship, acting as if they were still just as close as they used to be. Peter always showed off Photoshop photos of him and his father. Every year that he and his father were off vacationing somewhere out of the country, it never failed. Just like clockwork, it never failed. Peter always came back and told everybody exaggerated stories about every business trip that they had gone on for the past 6 months, every 6 months of the year. Some of Peter's friends were having a hard time believing the things he said from his lips. Like one time Peter told everyone that he and his dad once raped a chicken in Malaysia a couple of years back. When Peter came back the next year, he stated that he and his dad flew an F-1 presidential plane with the president and his son on a retreat, and while on that retreat the president slaughtered the chicken and started praising the dead chicken. So that outraged Peter's dad, Joseph Mulligan, who sent him irate and totally went into, began a Mike Tyson, Stone Cold Steve Austin slobberknocker, beating up the president and leaving the president and his son in South Korea, and was last seen taking off to Dubai. The president's presidential airline bus and has even managed to bribe the president's whole Secret Service staff team to work for the Mulligans, so they all turned in their guns and badges. Long story short, the president's airplane jet hangar belongs to the Mulligan family. Peter stated that while his dad was beating up the president, he and the president's son were also smashing the president with bats and clubs. That's when, instantly, some of Peter's friends took notice, calling Peter out, calling him a lie, while alienating themselves from him. Poking holes in the story that he had told everyone. Peter was away but not away, so he had gotten a little comfortable and had slipped up a few times when telling the story. He was at his high school sweetheart Molly's house. Molly was Peter's first, his first everything, and he knew he could easily tuck away and be hidden in plain sight the whole 6 months every year of the year all these past years. Now Molly wasn't rich, but, oh, boy did what her father did. That is what had brought them together in the first place. Molly's father was powerful, and Tommy Dwarf was the first oil producer of its kind, at the start of the oil factory days, making it the first ever to strike an oil strike back then in the early settler days. The Dwarfs family was the first family to strike oil and became the first rich oil company at the beginning of time. But misguided investments, failed business attempts, poor management squandered the family's money to barely make the Forbes 100 list as the 100th richest family. Peter was instantly high on lust and greed, anger in his eyes and revenge in his heart. He made a plan to sadistically make Molly his wife, because the love of money and power feeds the mind, greed. Peter only loved her because of her father's influence and how much it would align him and his family to be the official billion-dollar conglomerate he dreamed of. But he was still remorseful for what he must go through and the things he must have to do. Molly had lived in a 5-bedroom family home on 25 acres of land on the outskirts of Chester County in Franklin County. Peter was always on husband duties, busy with the kids, fixing things around the house, and rendaged away, so he can take a breather from Molly. The day Peter finally left Molly was when Jessica tracked his phone to her house and showed up at the front door to confront Peter. Chapter 8. I had no choice. Antonio was at the meeting spot where Detective Anderson was supposed to meet, so they could set up the scheme of faking Antonio's death to make the feds believe he was dead. But as soon as Antonio and Anderson laid eyes on one another, they began to viciously start fighting. Jessica and Beverly watched in horror, unsure of what to do. Antonio had the upper hand, his rage fueling his strength as he landed blow after blow on Anderson. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Anderson managed to grab a nearby weapon and strike Antonio in the head, knocking him to the ground. As Antonio lay there, dazed and bleeding, Anderson stood over him, panting heavily. Jessica and Beverly rushed to his side, helping him up and away from Antonio. But as they turned to leave, Antonio suddenly sprang to his feet, a crazed look in his eyes. Before anyone could react, Antonio lunged at Anderson, grabbing the weapon from his hand and turning it on him. But just as he was about to strike the final blow, a gunshot rang out, echoing through the air. It was Bobby, Antonio's right-hand man, who had managed to free himself from taking Antonio's orders and being his servant, so he grabbed his gun from his waist and shot one of the goons sitting in the car. Then he did the unthinkable, and he fired a single shot, in the direction of his boss, hitting Antonio square in the chest. Antonio staggered back, a look of shock on his face, before collapsing to the ground. As the dust settled, Jessica, Beverly, and Anderson stood in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. Bobby walked over to them, a grim expression on his face. I had to do it, he said simply. I had no choice. He was never going to stop. He was never going to let any of you go ever. Detective Anderson lay in his hospital bed, his body battered and broken from the brutal beating he had received from Antonio Hernandez. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, his thoughts kept returning to Beverly Hernandez, the love of his life whom he had lost touch with years ago. But now, as he lay there, he knew he had to tell Jessica the truth. She deserved to know that he was her biological father, not Antonio. It was a secret that had been kept from her for far too long, and it was time for the truth to come out. As Beverly reassured Jessica that they could talk about it later, Jessica's mind was in turmoil. She felt betrayed and lied to by her mother, and she couldn't understand why Detective Anderson had stayed out of her life for so long, only to reappear now. Furious and confused, Jessica stormed out of the hospital and got into her car. She drove aimlessly for hours, trying to make sense of the bombshell that had been dropped on her. Eventually, she found herself back at the hospital, parked in the car, smoking cigarettes and weed to numb the pain. But she knew she couldn't avoid the truth forever. With a heavy heart, she extinguished her blunt and made her way into the hospital to confront her parents. As she entered Detective Anderson's hospital room, she found herself face to face with her mother and father. Emotions ran high as they tried to heal the wounds of the past and connect with each other. But Jessica's mind was still fixed on her upcoming birthday bash. Determined to drown her sorrows in drugs and alcohol, she took the key to Detective Anderson's taco shop and left without a word. Jessica Hernandez had been planning her big birthday bash for weeks. She had invited all her friends to the taco shop after stealing Anderson's key. Jessica made sure there was plenty of alcohol and drugs to go around. As the night went on, Jessica got wild and crazy, getting high and drunk with her friends. But things took a turn for the worse when Jessica got into a fight with some girls at the party. The argument quickly escalated into a full-blown brawl, with punches being thrown and drinks being spilled everywhere. Just when things seemed to be getting out of control, a boy stepped in and broke up the fight. The boy introduced himself as Alex, and he seemed to have a dangerous edge to him. He whispered in Jessica's ear, telling her that he knew some drug dealers who had a stash of cash just waiting to be taken. In her intoxicated state, Jessica agreed to go along with his plan. They snuck out of the taco shop and made their way to the drug dealer's hideout. With Alex leading the way, they broke in and stole the money. But their luck ran out when the police showed up and arrested them both. As Jessica sat in her jail cell, she couldn't believe how quickly things had spiraled out of control. She knew she was in deep trouble, but she never expected her biological father, Detective Anderson, to show up at the police station. Anderson was a respected detective in the city, and he was determined to do whatever it took to save his daughter. But as he tried to piece together what had happened, he couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment in Jessica. Their relationship had always been strained, but this was a new low. Anderson tried to talk to Jessica, to get her to see reason, but she was too angry and upset to listen. In a fit of rage, she lashed out at him and ran away as soon as she was bailed out of jail. As Anderson scrambled to track her down, he couldn't help but wonder where he had gone wrong as a father. He knew he had to find Jessica before she got herself into even more trouble, but he also knew that their relationship would never be the same again. And as he searched the city for his wayward daughter, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were only going to get worse before they got better. Intent on getting high, Jessica called up a friend for drugs and set her sights on manipulating Brian Bikraman, a classmate who had always tried to hit on her. She planned to use him to get the drugs she needed to calm her nerves, not caring about the consequences. As the night wore on, Jessica's reckless behavior escalated. She took drugs, drank heavily, and danced wildly, all in an attempt to forget the pain and confusion that had consumed her. But as the night drew to a close, the reality of her actions hit her hard. She had betrayed her family, manipulated a classmate, and lost herself in a haze of drugs and alcohol. As she stumbled out of the taco shop, the weight of her actions bore down on her. She knew she had to face the consequences of her choices and find a way to make amends with those she had hurt. And as she stood alone in the darkness, the truth of her identity and the pain of her past weighed heavily on her shoulders. But deep down, she knew that unity and strength could only come from facing the truth and finding a way to heal the wounds that had torn her family apart. And with that, Bobby turned and walked away, leaving the three of them to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. Antonio was dead, his reign of terror was finally over. And as they stood there, surrounded by the chaos and destruction, they knew that they were finally free from Antonio's vengeance now, and to be able to start over and maybe rekindle their family. Jessica's life had spiraled out of control at that moment. Her addiction to alcohol had consumed her, leading her to dangerous situations and near-death experiences. But on the fateful birthday night, she lay curled up behind a garbage can, vomiting and peeing on herself. She now knew she herself was officially at rock bottom. It was 3:30 in the morning, and Jessica was alone in the cold, her body shaking from the alcohol poisoning. She was on the verge of death when an old couple just so happened to stroll by and hear her cries for help. They quickly called the paramedics, who arrived just in time to save her life. As the paramedics pumped the alcohol out of her body and administered Narcan to counteract the overdose, Jessica felt a sense of clarity wash over her. She knew she had been given a second chance at life, and she was determined to make the most of it. The ambulance rushed her to the hospital, where she was reunited with her father, who was also battling his own demons. Jessica's near-death experience had a profound impact on her, and she knew she needed to make a change in her life. She immediately delved into philosophy, self-help books, Christian teachings, manifestations and mindfulness, seeking guidance and strength to overcome her addiction. She told her that she needed to surround herself with positive influences, to attend church and study the Bible regularly. Just when she thought things couldn't get any better, Jessica received a call from her grandmother, Patty Hernandez. She had received a letter in the mail with a check for $30,000 left by Jessica's late father, Antonio Hernandez. This unexpected windfall would change her life and set her up for success. Things were aligning up for Jessica. With the support of her family, her newfound faith, and the financial stability provided by the inheritance, Jessica imagined being able to turn her life around. She embraces sobriety, finding purpose in serving God, and dedicating herself to helping others who are struggling with addiction. Jessica's journey in the depths of despair to a hopeful life filled with hope and purpose through it will be a testament to the power of honesty, redemption, and the belief that it's never too late to start anew. And as she's looking back on what went on at the birthday bash, reality sets in, shivering in the cold, half dead in the dark, chilly night behind the garbage can. She knew that it was the moment that had saved her life. Chapter 9. Jessica's Blessing. Jessica Hernandez had always believed that Antonio Hernandez was her father. He had raised her with love and care, and she had never questioned her parentage. But when Antonio was killed by his right-hand man, Detective Andrell Anderson revealed the shocking truth. Antonio was not her biological father. Before his death, Antonio had sent Jessica $30,000 through the mail. Determined to spark change and make a difference in the world, Jessica decided to use the money to invest in her community. She started by helping small businesses get off the ground, providing them with the resources and support they needed to succeed. One of the businesses Jessica invested in was a struggling local company that manufactured eco-friendly products. With Jessica's guidance and financial backing, the business grew rapidly, eventually becoming a $1 million corporation that outperformed 3 rival competitors. Jessica's keen business sense and commitment to ethical practices turned the company into a household name, known for its commitment to sustainability and social responsibility. In addition to her success in the business world, Jessica also made smart investments in stocks and bonds. She put $5,000 in Energy X private stock, $5,000 in bonds, and $5,000 in Reddit, diversifying her portfolio and ensuring financial stability for the future. But Jessica's true passion lay in her work as the lead pastor of her own church. She preached the gospel with passion and conviction, quoting biblical verses like John chapter 15 and Ephesians chapter 6 verses 10 to 24 to inspire young people to turn away from crime, drugs, and gangs. Through her church, Jessica invested in the lives of young people, providing them with guidance, support, and a sense of purpose. As Jessica's influence grew, so did her church. Young people flocked to her sermons, drawn by her intelligence, charisma, and unwavering commitment to making a difference in the world. Jessica became a strong, influential leader in her community, using her wealth and influence to empower others and create positive change. Jessica Hernandez's story was one of redemption, resilience, and transformation. Through her investments in the community, her success in the business world, and her work as a pastor, she proved that with determination, faith, and a strong sense of purpose, anything is possible. And as she looked out at the young faces in her congregation, she knew that she was making a difference, one life at a time. As Detective Anderson sat across from the federal agents, he took a deep breath and began to explain the truth behind Antonio Hernandez's murder. "I was there the day Antonio was killed," he started, his voice steady. "But I wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. It was his right-hand man, Bobby. He had been working for Antonio for years, but he was tired of taking orders. He saw an opportunity to take over the business, and he took it." The federal agents exchanged a look of surprise, clearly not expecting this twist in the case. "I tried to stop him, but he was too quick. By the time I got there, it was too late," Anderson continued. "I've been trying to track him down ever since, but he's gone off the grid. I turned in my badge and gun because I knew I couldn't continue in this line of work. I need to leave this all behind and start fresh." The federal agents listened intently, taking notes as Anderson spoke. After a moment of silence, one of them spoke up. We'll need more evidence to corroborate your story, detective. But for now, we'll keep an eye on you and see if Bobby resurfaces. If what you're saying is true, we'll do everything we can to clear your name." And with that, Detective Anderson left the office, feeling a weight lifted off his shoulders. He knew he had a long road ahead of him, but at least now he had a chance to move on from the darkness that had consumed his life. The reunion. Andrell Anderson and Beverly Hernandez had not seen each other in years. Their love had been torn apart by a violent act of jealousy, but now, fate had brought them back together. They met by chance at a small cafe in the heart of the city, and as soon as their eyes met, they knew that their love had never truly died. As they sat across from each other, sipping on their coffee and catching up on lost time, the passion between them reignited. They talked about their dreams of starting a new life in the beautiful country of Barbados, away from the chaos and violence of the city. But there was one thing holding them back. Andrell's name was still tainted by the feds. He had been falsely accused of a crime he did not commit, and until his name was cleared, they could not leave the country. The dilemma as Andrell and Beverly struggled with the decision of whether to leave Jessica behind or take her with them, they couldn't help but feel torn. Jessica had been like a daughter to them, and they couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone in the city. But as they watched Jessica thrive and grow into a strong, independent young woman, they began to realize that maybe she didn't need them as much as they thought. She had her own dreams and ambitions, and they knew that she would be okay on her own. With a heavy heart, they made the decision to leave Jessica behind and embark on their journey to Barbados. They knew that it was time for them to focus on their own happiness and finally be together, free from the shadows of the past. The escape. As the day of their departure drew near, Andrell and Beverly felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. They were finally going to start a new life together, far away from the pain and heartache of the past. But just as they were about to board their flight, they received a chilling message from Sally Schaefer, the Sobriety House manager who had helped them years ago when Jessica entered the Sobriety House. She threatened to reveal Andrell's secret to the authorities if they did not return to the city immediately. Faced with a difficult decision, Andrell and Beverly knew that they had to act fast. Without a second thought, they made the daring decision to skip the country and see if they could finally have the relationship they had always dreamed of. As they boarded the plane to Barbados, they knew that their journey was just beginning. They were leaving behind the past and embracing a future filled with love, passion, and the promise of a new beginning. And this time, they were determined to make it last as they had hoped. Chapter 10. Fake Love. Jessica stood at the starting line of the track, the early morning sun casting a golden glow over the field, highlighting the determination etched into her features. With a deep breath, she took off, her feet pounding against the track with a rhythm that matched the quickening of her heartbeat. The wind whipped through her short hair, carrying with it a sense of freedom and exhilaration as she pushed her body to its limits, each stride a testament to her dedication and skill. The cheers of the crowd faded into a distant hum as Jessica raced ahead, leaving her competitors trailing behind, a blur of colors and shapes in her peripheral vision, easily overtaken by the sheer speed and agility she possessed. But it wasn't just her physical prowess that set her apart. Jessica's strength of character shone through in every aspect of her life, most notably in her unwavering faith and commitment to her beliefs. This was evident not only in the way she conducted herself on the track, with grace and humility in both victory and defeat, but also in her interactions with those around her, always ready to offer a helping hand or a kind word to anyone in need. Her reputation as a role model and a pillar of the community was well-deserved, admired and respected by all who crossed her path. Everything changed for Jessica when she met Peter, a charismatic and charming rebel who seemed to have an irresistible hold over her. The catalyst in their tumultuous relationship was the introduction to a world of alcohol, drugs, and parties, a stark contrast to Jessica's accustomed way of life. Despite the disapproval of her family and friends, she found herself drawn to Peter like a moth to a flame, succumbing to the dangerous allure of the vices he offered. The initial thrill of rebellion soon gave way to a dark and destructive downward spiral, as Jessica became entangled in a web of deceit and self-destruction, losing herself in a haze of substance abuse and toxic behavior. The seams of their tumultuous relationship began to unravel as Jessica's dependence on Peter deepened, corrosive jealousy and possessiveness poisoning their love. Her moment of clarity came in a flash of memory, as she recalled the past violence towards a former boyfriend, the toxic patterns repeating themselves in her current relationship. Were her actions justified in the name of love, Or had she been blinded by her emotions, unable to discern right from wrong, a slave to her own misguided sense of loyalty? As Detective Anderson dug deeper into Peter's mysterious demise, the weight of suspicion bore down on Jessica like a heavy shroud, suffocating her with guilt and fear. The whispers and sidelong glances of the community only fueled the flames of doubt, painting her as a villain in her own tragic tale, a narrative she seemed powerless to alter. The walls closed in around her, the truth hovering just out of reach, a specter of impending doom that threatened to consume her whole. In a cruel twist of fate, Peter's true killer was revealed to be a ruthless enemy he had made in a misguided bid for power and control, a pawn in a deadly game of betrayal and revenge. Jessica found herself at a crossroads, grappling with the aftermath of his death and the harsh reality of her actions, seeking redemption in the unlikeliest of places. Through her grief and guilt, she unearthed a newfound strength within herself, a resolve to confront her demons and make amends for the havoc she had wrought. With the unwavering support of her family and friends, Jessica emerged from the crucible of her past mistakes, her once shattered spirit now tempered by the fires of adversity and resilience. She recommitted herself to her faith, finding solace in the forgiveness and compassion she extended to both others and herself, the wounds of the past slowly healing with each step she took towards a brighter future. The echoes of her tumultuous journey lingered in the shadows, a reminder of the trials she had faced and the triumphs she had achieved, a testament to the enduring power of redemption and second chances. The heavy rain beat against the windows of the small, rundown room where Peter sat, surrounded by the broken pieces of his once cherished possessions. The dim light barely illuminated the tears streaming down his face as he clutched a note in his trembling hands, the words scrawled on it a goodbye to a world he felt had abandoned him. With a deep, shuddering breath, he stood and made his way to the radio, turning the volume up at full blast, drowning out the noise of his inner turmoil, cloaking him in a shield of deafening sound as he braced himself to end it all. It was at this moment of utter despair that fate seemed to intervene, leading him back to a memory of a time before the darkness consumed him, to a time when he was still connected to the world, to Jessica. The memory of Jessica beckoned to him like a lighthouse in a stormy sea, giving him a sliver of hope he thought he had long lost. In a desperate message, Peter reached out to Jessica, crying for help, his voice breaking with emotions he could not contain any longer. Desperation clung to his every word as he poured out his heart, revealing the burden he had been carrying alone for so long. Jessica, knowing there was something deeper at play, flew to him as fast as she could, her heart heavy with worry about the man she once loved, determined to do everything in her power to save him. The emotional turmoil reached a crescendo as Jessica once again confronted Peter about his destructive behavior. The room felt suffocating as the air crackled with unresolved tension, their words like daggers piercing through the fragile veil of their relationship. In a moment of sheer anguish, Peter yielded to his pain and called the police on Jessica, a decision he would forever regret as she was led away, her eyes a mixture of betrayal and sorrow. With a weight heavy on his chest, Peter found himself alone in the world he had pushed away, alienated from the very person he had hoped would save him. As his world crumbled around him, Peter's heart grew heavier with each passing day. The sound of the approaching darkness grew deafening, the burden of his actions crushing him under its weight. Devoid of any light or hope, Peter believed he had destroyed his chance for redemption, resigned to his fate as a lost soul wandering in the shadows. In the depths of his despair, a flicker of resolve ignited within Peter. He reflected on his past mistakes, the pain he had inflicted on those who had once cared for him, and a determination to right his wrongs blossomed in his hardened heart. He made a vow to himself to fight for his own happiness, to confront the demons that had haunted him for far too long, and to seek out a path towards forgiveness and redemption. Through the support of the Sobriety House of which he became a reluctant part, Peter discovered the power of healing and forgiveness. Confessions turned into conversations, and with each step he took towards his own recovery, he found a measure of solace in the shared stories of struggle and triumph. Hand in hand with Jessica, he bared his soul, his vulnerabilities laid bare before her, and she reciprocated with a love that transcended all pain and hurt. Together, they embraced a new beginning, a journey towards a future built on trust, understanding, and the unwavering belief that they could conquer whatever challenges may come their way. Peter's metamorphosis from a man on the edge of darkness to a beacon of hope not only illuminated his path but also inspired those around him to believe in the transformative power of redemption and second chances. But Peter never had a chance for redemption. Chapter 11. Framed in Revenge. Sally Schaefer sat in her room at the mental hospital, her mind consumed with thoughts of revenge. She couldn't believe that Jessica Hernandez and her father, Detective Andrell Anderson, had framed her for murder. She had believed she was in the clear, but now she was being accused of killing Peter Mulligan, a resident at the Sobriety House. As she sat there, the memories of that fateful night came flooding back. She had snuck off from work, climbed into Peter's window that Jessica told her she would leave open for her to enter his room. It went off without a hitch. Peters was lying on his bed listening to the radio. She had startled Peter when she entered through the window. Peter didn't know what was going on. As he opened his mouth, he started, "Miss Schaefer, what are you doing, and why are you coming through my window?" Sally's movements were quick, as if she was a cheetah in the wild. She turned the radio all the way up so no one could hear the screams. Sally pulled the long hunting knife out and plunged it into Peter's heart and twisted it. Shocked Peter, eyes widened, grasped for air, blood dripping from his chest and mouth. He tries to speak but can't get anything out. Within seconds Peter's lifeless body had dropped and was now dead, so Sally staged the scene. To her surprise, Peter had bolted his room door shut. She took off her gloves and went back out through the window. Sally handed the gloves to Jessica from her to get rid of them for her since she was being called to assist a resident. Come to find out, Jessica hid the bloody gloves in her room, and before she knew it, the police were knocking on her room door. She tried to explain, but no one would listen. Now she was locked away, labeled as a dangerous criminal. But Sally knew the truth. She knew that her and Jessica had killed Peter, but she never thought Jessica would tell her and make her go to prison. Jessica's father, the detective, had gotten close to Jessica, and now Jessica was a pastor and had everybody believing that she was a saint. She knew that she could not put this behind her. They had always been jealous of her success, and now they were trying to destroy her life. Well, she wasn't going to let them get away with it. She began to plot her revenge, her mind racing with ideas of how to make them pay for what they had done to her. She knew she had to be careful, though. If she was going to take them down, she had to do it in a way that couldn't be traced back to her. As the days passed, Sally's mental state began to deteriorate even further. She became more and more obsessed with her plan for revenge, unable to think of anything else. She knew she was teetering on the edge of sanity, but she didn't care. All that mattered to her now was making Jessica and Detective Anderson pay. The day of reckoning would arrive. Sally planned that she would manage to set up an escape from the mental hospital, using her cunning and resourcefulness to slip past the guards. She would make her way to Jessica's house. Sally's heart was pounding with anticipation. Visions of her standing outside the front door. She took a deep breath knowing that she'd pushed it open and found Jessica alone, scared and defenseless. Jessica would be standing in the living room, with a look of shock on her face as she saw Sally standing there with a hunting knife ready to kill Jessica for crossing her. "You thought you could ruin my life and get away with it?" Sally hissed, her eyes burning with rage. "Well, now it's your turn to pay," she yelled. With that, she lunged at Jessica, her hands wrapping around her throat. Jessica struggled, but Sally's grip was too strong. As she squeezed tighter and tighter, a sense of satisfaction washed over her. She had finally gotten her revenge. But as she stood there, panting and covered in blood, a sense of emptiness washed over her. She realized that her quest for revenge had consumed her, turning her into a monster. And now, as she looked down at Jessica's lifeless body, she knew that she would never be able to escape the darkness that had taken hold of her. And so, Sally Schaefer knew it would be a tragic end for her, a cautionary tale of the dangers of seeking revenge at any cost. She instantly snapped out of her daydream, chilled with the horror of her actions that would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within us all. Sally thought of her dead twin sister and deviously smiled, and at that moment she knew that there was no turning back now. Jessica had to die and pay for her actions. Jessica would now be the third person that she had to kill. Her twin sister was her first victim. Peter was victim number 2. Now Miss Schaefer's sights were set on Jessica becoming the third victim. In the glitzy world of high-stakes gambling and luxury casinos, Detective Andrell Anderson finds himself embroiled in a deadly game of chance, the fatal gambit. It all began with a call in the dead of night, summoning Alex to the scene of a possible suicide, which in turn was a brutal murder at one of the city's most exclusive sobriety houses. As he arrived, he was met with a scene of chaos. The body of an elite high-rolling gambling drug addict who was a well-known billionaire's son named Peter Mulligan. There he laid sprawled on the floor, his life snuffed out in a violent act of anger and rage. As Alex surveyed the scene, he knew that this was no ordinary suicide, it was surely a homicide. The sobriety house was a den of temptation and vice, where futures were won and lost in the blink of an eye. But beneath the glitz and glamour lay a dark underbelly of corruption and deceit, and Detective Anderson knew that. With each clue he uncovered, Anderson found himself drawn deeper into the twisted world of high-stakes gambling, knowing that his biological daughter was somehow wrapped up in this. It seemed that everyone had a motive for wanting Peter dead, from former past girlfriends to disgruntled family members with a score to settle with Peter. But amidst the chaos, one name kept resurfacing: Sally Schaefer, a ruthless house manager with high hopes of becoming the owner of the house with a reputation for playing dirty. Anderson knew that if anyone had the means and the motive to commit murder, it was Miss Schaefer. As Anderson pursued the elusive truth, he found himself confronting his own demons. Haunted by memories of past failures, he struggled to maintain his composure in the face of overwhelming odds. But with each setback, he grew more determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With time running out and the pressure mounting, Anderson faced a race against the clock to catch a killer before they disappeared into the shadows forever. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Anderson uncovered a crucial piece of evidence that would crack the case wide open. There, hidden in Sally's room, were blood-stained gloves in her trash can and a ledger in her dresser drawer that revealed a web of corruption and deceit stretching far beyond the walls of the sobriety house and implicating Sally Schaefer in a deadly game of greed and betrayal. In a dramatic showdown amidst the flashing lights of the sobriety house floor, justice was served, and the killer was going to be brought to justice. But the scars left by the fatal gambit would linger long after the scars had been healed. As Detective Anderson stood alone in the aftermath, he knew that some gambles were too deadly to take. But armed with nothing but his courage and his determination, he vowed to continue fighting for Jessica no matter where the trail of deceit may lead. He knew he had to save his daughter and keep her name away from this case and pin it all on the sobriety house manager, Sally Schaefer. Chapter 12. From good, bad to worse. Jessica Hernandez had always been a source of strength and inspiration for those around her. At just 19 years old, she had already made a name for herself as the youngest pastor in her community. Her infectious passion for helping others and spreading messages of love and forgiveness endeared her to many. But not everyone was a fan of Jessica's success. Sally Schaefer, a former house manager at the sobriety house Jessica had once lived in, harbored a deep hatred for the young pastor. Sally had resented Jessica for pinning her on the murder of Peter Mulligan, an ex-resident at the sobriety house, while Jessica was successful, leaving her remaining stuck in her own personal struggles and facing prison time. One fateful day, Sally showed up at Jessica's church while she was alone, a sinister glint in her eyes. Jessica greeted her warmly, unaware of the danger that lurked beneath Sally's facade. It was then that Sally confronted Jessica about the death of a former house resident named Peter Mulligan, accusing Jessica of being responsible for his demise. Jessica stated that her claims were just baseless accusations, and tried to reason with Sally while explaining that she had little to no involvement in Peter's death. But Sally's rage knew no bounds as she launched herself at Jessica, raining blows upon her with a fury that was fueled by years of resentment and bitterness. The two women engaged in a brutal brawl, their screams echoing through the empty church as they fought for their lives. Sally, fueled by a desire for revenge, overpowered Jessica and pinned her to the ground, her hands closing around Jessica's throat in a deadly chokehold. Jessica's vision began to blur as she gasped for breath, the darkness closing in around her. This was it, she thought, this was the end. But just as she felt herself slipping away, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Jessica, Detective Andrell Anderson, Jessica's father, burst into the church, his expression a mix of shock and horror at the sight before him. Without a second thought, he drew his gun and fired 2 shots at Sally, the sound reverberating through the church as blood sprayed from her skull. As Sally's lifeless body slumped to the ground, Jessica gasped for air, tears streaming down her face. Her father rushed to her side, pulling her into a tight embrace as he whispered words of reassurance and comfort. The trauma of the attack lingered in the air, the sense of fear and disbelief weighing heavily on both Jessica and her father. In the aftermath of the attack, Jessica found herself grappling with a range of emotions, anger, fear, and sorrow all swirling within her. The realization that Sally had come so close to taking her life shook her to her core, leaving her feeling vulnerable and exposed in a way she had never experienced before. But through it all, Jessica's faith remained steadfast. She found solace in the knowledge that she was surrounded by a community that cared for her, a family that loved her, and a God who would always be by her side. And as she stood in the quiet sanctuary of her church, surrounded by the flickering candles and the gentle hum of prayer, Jessica knew that she would emerge from this dark chapter stronger and more resilient than ever before. Jessica Hernandez felt a cold fear grip her heart as she stumbled out of the church, her body bruised and battered, blood dripping down her face from a gash on her forehead. Her father, Andrell Anderson, stood by her side, his face a mask of grim determination as he helped her to walk to his car. The night was dark and ominous, with storm clouds gathering overhead, casting an eerie shadow over the scene. As they reached the car, Jessica turned to her father, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, how did you know Sally was here trying to kill me?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear and confusion. Andrell looked at her with a steely gaze, his jaw clenched in anger. "It was just a stroke of luck that I happened to stop by the church tonight," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was actually planning to talk to you about a family matter, but when I saw Sally lurking in the shadows, I knew something was wrong." Just then, the sound of sirens pierced the night air, and 5 police cars screeched to a halt in front of the church. Jessica felt a surge of relief at the sight of the officers, grateful for their arrival. But her relief quickly turned to confusion as the officers approached them with grim expressions on their faces. "Jessica Hernandez, you are under arrest for the murder of Peter Mulligan," one of the officers said, his voice stern and unforgiving. Jessica's heart skipped a beat as she looked at her father in shock. "Dad, what's going on? I didn't kill anyone," she cried, her voice desperate and pleading. Andrell's eyes burned with fury as he turned to the officers, his voice booming with rage. "What in the hell is this? Jessica didn't do anything wrong. Sally Schaefer killed Peter and the one who attacked Jessica tonight, not the other way around." The officers ignored Andrell's protests and proceeded to handcuff Jessica, leading her away from her father and into one of the police cars. Jessica could do nothing but cry as she was driven away, her heart heavy with fear and despair. She couldn't believe that she was being accused of a crime she didn't commit, that her life was being torn apart in an instant. Meanwhile, Andrell Anderson was left standing outside the church, his fists clenched in anger and frustration. He knew that there had to be a mistake, that Jessica was innocent. But as he looked around at the deserted street, a chilling realization dawned on him. There was something dark and sinister at play here, something that went beyond a simple misunderstanding. Andrell stormed into the church, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallways as he searched for any clue that could shed light on the situation. As he reached the back of the church, he found a hidden room that was covered in blood and gore, the stench of death hanging heavy in the air. And in the corner of the room, he saw the lifeless body of Sally Schaefer, her eyes staring blankly into nothingness. Andrell's heart sank as he realized the truth. Sally Schaefer had been behind the attempt on Jessica's life, and she had paid the ultimate price for her crimes. But the question still remained: who had framed Jessica for the murder of Peter Mulligan? And why were the police so quick to arrest her without any evidence? With a steely resolve, Andrell vowed to clear his daughter's name and bring the true culprit to justice. He knew that time was running out, that Jessica's life hung in the balance. As he raced against the clock, the storm clouds outside grew darker, the thunder rumbling in the distance like a warning of the chaos to come. In a thrilling race against time, Andrell calls his friend in the FBI to help him uncover a web of deceit and betrayal that will lead him to a powerful figure who had orchestrated the whole scheme to frame Jessica for a crime she didn't commit. With his skills as a detective, he had unwavering determination. Andrell needed to gather the evidence that was needed to prove Jessica's innocence and bring the true culprit to justice. In a tense moment, Andrell knew that he would someday confront the mastermind behind the plot, his voice ringing with authority and determination. He said to himself that he would kill whoever it was. The truth is bound to come to light, the villain's facade will crumble, and justice will finally be served. Jessica will get released from custody, her name will be cleared of all charges, and she will finally be able to breathe a sigh of relief as they will embrace each other, being grateful for unwavering love and support. With the storm clouds beginning to clear, revealing a sky filled with stars shining brightly above them, Andrell promised Jessica that they would overcome a dark and dangerous ordeal together, and their bond as father and daughter would only grow stronger by dealing with the face of adversity. Imagining they would drive away into the night, leaving the church and its dark secrets behind them, he just knew that they would always have each other to lean on in times of trouble and turmoil. Chapter 13. Jailhouse, Jailbird. Jessica's heart was pounding as she was handcuffed and led into the Chester County Jail. She couldn't believe this was happening to her. Just a few weeks ago, she was studying her sermon for Easter Sunday and planning her future. But now, she is a prime suspect in the murder of her ex-boyfriend, Peter Mulligan. Jessica's lawyer had advised her not to speak to anyone about the case, so she remained silent as she was booked into the jail. Her mugshot and fingerprints were taken, and she was given an orange jumpsuit to wear. She was then escorted to her cell, which she would be sharing with 3 other inmates. As soon as Jessica stepped into her cell, she could feel the tension in the air. The other inmates looked at her with curiosity and suspicion. She could tell that they were all wondering why someone like her was in jail. Jessica tried to keep to herself, but it was impossible. The other inmates were constantly taunting and bullying her. They called her names and made fun of her appearance. Jessica felt like a target, and she didn't know how long she could survive in this environment. The worst of her bullies was Cynthia Carmichael, a top-ranking member of the Franklin Park Menace Crew, a gang that operated in Franklin County. Cynthia was known for being ruthless and had a reputation for making the lives of her enemies a living hell. It didn't take long for Cynthia to set her sights on Jessica. She saw her as an easy target, and she took great pleasure in tormenting her. Every day, she would find new ways to make Jessica's life miserable. She would steal her food, destroy her belongings, and even physically attack her. Jessica was terrified of Cynthia, but she refused to show it. She knew that showing fear would only make things worse. Instead, she focused on surviving each day and praying for her trial to start. One day, Jessica received a letter from her lawyer, stating that he had found a potential witness who could help her case. The witness was a member of a rival gang, the Chester County Rebels. They were the sworn enemies of the Franklin Park Menace Crew. Jessica saw this as an opportunity to get revenge on Cynthia. She reached out to the witness and learned that his name was Josh Allen, the shot caller of the Chester County Rebels. He had been watching Jessica's trial closely and believed that she was innocent. Josh agreed to help Jessica, but he had one condition: she had to join forces with the Chester County Rebels. They needed her help to take down the Franklin Park Menace Crew, and in return, they would protect her in jail and help her gain her freedom. Jessica didn't hesitate to accept the offer. She was tired of being bullied and wanted to put an end to Cynthia's reign of terror. With the help of Josh and the rebels, Jessica started to fight back against Cynthia and the other inmates who had been tormenting her. Together, they formed a plan to take down Cynthia and her crew. They used their knowledge of the jail's layout and their connections with other inmates to execute their plan. Jessica played a crucial role in gathering information and gaining the trust of other inmates who were willing to help. Finally, the day of the rebellion arrived. The Chester County Rebels and their allies launched a coordinated attack on the Franklin Park Menace Crew. In the chaos, Jessica and Cynthia came face to face. But this time, Jessica was not alone. She had an entire team of rebels backing her up. In a fierce and brutal fight, Jessica manages to take down Cynthia and her crew. The rebellion was a success, and the Franklin Park Menace Crew was disbanded. Jessica could now focus on clearing her name. Since Jessica was placed in Chester County Jail from day one, all Jessica could think about was clearing her name, and get released from jail. As she walked from the van shackled and cuffed, walking to the bullpen outside the building in bullpen cells, she waited to go to the courthouse courtroom, which was filled with reporters and news stations. There, surrounded by her new friends and allies, Jessica couldn't help but reflect on her incarceration. She had been through a living hell, but she had also found strength and resilience within herself. She had gone from being a victim to a fighter, and she knew that she could survive anything that came her way by keeping faith, trusting the Lord and praying constantly, always praising Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Jessica Hernandez stood in front of her congregation, her voice filled with passion and conviction as she preached the word of God. Her eyes sparkled with determination, reflecting the years of hardship and struggles she faced as a minority woman in a male-dominated profession. The old, weathered church pews inside the jail creaked under the weight of the worshippers, casting long shadows on the dimly lit sanctuary. Through the stained glass windows, rays of sunlight streamed in, illuminating Jessica's face, highlighting the scars on her cheeks that bore witness to the battles she was fighting, both physically and spiritually. Every word she spoke reverberated through the air, carrying the weight of her past and the hope for a better future. Despite her attempts to leave her troubled past behind, Jessica's tenure as the youngest pastor in her community was rocked by a sudden turn of events. A ruthless district attorney determined to make an example out of her. Accusations of first-degree murder and false lies began to swirl around her, tarnishing her reputation and casting a dark shadow over her once bright future. The imposing figure of the district attorney loomed over her, his words dripping with malice and authority as he threatened to bring her down and destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. In a bold move to show her dedication to her calling and to help those in need, Jessica started volunteering at the Chester County Jail. There, she found herself running sermons for the inmates, a diverse group of individuals seeking redemption and solace in the midst of their confinement. Just when Jessica felt like she had found her footing and her purpose, she brokered a fragile peace between two rival gangs inside the jail, hoping not to have it shattered by an unexpected act of violence. The echoing sound of the gunshot reverberated through the narrow corridors of the jail, mingling with the gasps and cries of the inmates. Jessica's heart sank as she realized that her efforts, her hopes for reconciliation, had been in vain. As rumors and threats swirled around her, Jessica's enemies, including the district attorney and the inmates themselves, closed in on her, determined to see her fail. Suspicion and animosity grew within the jail, with many pointing fingers at Jessica as the cause of the escalating tensions. The once respected pastor now found herself isolated and on the brink of losing everything she held dear. The walls seemed to be closing in on Jessica from all sides, suffocating her with the weight of betrayal and distrust. In a moment of despair, Jessica found herself betrayed by one of the inmates she had tried to help, leading to a vicious physical attack that left her broken and questioning everything she stood for. The darkness closed in around her, suffocating her with self-doubt and fear, pushing her to the edge of giving up entirely. The taste of blood in her mouth and the searing pain in her side served as cruel reminders of her perceived failure, driving Jessica to the depths of despair. Through the support of a fellow inmate, a wise old man with a troubled past who saw the good in Jessica, she came to realize that her journey was not just about helping others but also about finding redemption for herself. His words of wisdom cut through the fog of doubt, igniting a spark of resilience in Jessica's weary soul. With a renewed sense of purpose and a resolve to never give up, Jessica emerged from the darkness with a newfound determination to make things right and to prove her innocence, not only to others but to herself as well. With the help of her friends and allies, including her fellow inmates and her newfound mentor, Jessica uncovered the truth behind the district attorney's vendetta against her and was able to clear her name. She was exonerated of all charges and found a sense of peace and fulfillment in her work, knowing that she had made a true difference in the lives of those around her. The truth, like a beacon of light, dispelled the shadows of doubt and fear that had plagued Jessica's journey, paving the way for a new chapter in her life filled with hope and redemption. As she stood once again in front of her congregation, her voice steady and strong, Jessica knew that she had finally found her true calling, and nothing could stand in her way. Chapter 14. Jessica's Redemption. Jessica stood at the pulpit of Chester Valley Worship Center, her heart pounding in her chest. It had been 3 long years since she had last stood in front of her congregation, preaching the Word of God. But now, after serving her time in prison, she is finally free to return to her calling. As she looked out at the faces of the people before her, she felt a mix of emotions. There were those who had stood by her during her darkest days, offering support and prayers. And then there were those who had turned their backs on her, judging her for her past mistakes. But Jessica knew that she was not defined by her past. She was a child of God, redeemed by His grace and mercy. And she was determined to use her experiences to help others find their way back to Him. Taking a deep breath, Jessica began her sermon, her voice strong and unwavering. My dear brothers and sisters, today I stand before you as a living testament to the power of God's love and forgiveness. In Romans chapter 5 verse 8, we are reminded that God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This verse speaks to the heart of our faith, that no matter how far we may stray, God's love is always there, waiting for us to return. As Jessica spoke, she could feel the weight of her words sinking in. She could see the tears in the eyes of those who had felt lost and alone, and she knew that her message was reaching them. But it is not enough to simply accept God's love and forgiveness, Jessica continued. We must also strive to live a life that is pleasing to him. In Romans chapter 8 verse 1, we are told that, "There is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus." This is a powerful reminder that we are free from the chains of sin and guilt, but it also comes with a responsibility to walk in righteousness. As Jessica preached, she could feel the presence of the Holy Spirit moving through the room. She knew that her words were not her own, but were being guided by a higher power. We are all faced with temptation and moral dilemmas in our lives, Jessica said. But it is how we respond to these challenges that defines who we are as Christians. We must be vigilant in our faith, constantly seeking God's guidance and strength to resist the temptations of this world. As Jessica finished her sermon, she could see the impact it had on her congregation. There were tears of repentance and joy, as people came forward to rededicate their lives to Christ. At that moment, Jessica knew that her time in prison had not been in vain. It had been a test of her faith, a refining fire that had strengthened her resolve to serve God with all her heart. As she stepped down from the pulpit, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, preaching the word of God to those who needed it most. And as she looked out at the faces of her congregation, she knew that she had been forgiven, redeemed, and restored. And she was grateful for every moment of it. Detective Andrell Anderson had been on the hunt for the mastermind behind the twisted events that had destroyed his daughter's life. It had been a few years since Jessica Hernandez, Anderson's only child, had been viciously attacked by her former house manager, Sally Schaefer. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Jessica had been set up to take the fall for the death of Peter Mulligan, a resident at the Sobriety House where she had been working as a counselor. And the mastermind behind it all? Peter's father, a high-powered business executive with connections and influence that made him untouchable. Anderson had been a detective for over 2 decades, and this was by far the most personal case he had ever taken on. He had watched his daughter suffer through the trial, being falsely accused and convicted of a crime she didn't commit. And then, to add insult to injury, she was sentenced to prison. Anderson had been devastated, but he never gave up hope. He knew in his gut that there was more to the story, and he was determined to uncover the truth and bring the real mastermind to justice. As Anderson delved deeper into the case, he discovered that Peter's father, who was the head of the Mulligan fortune, had been pulling strings behind the scenes. He had hired Sally Schaefer to be the house manager at the Sobriety House in order to keep an eye on Jessica and make sure she didn't uncover any incriminating evidence. And when Jessica had stumbled upon the truth about Peter's death, Sally had been instructed to lure her to it, and when Jessica set her up, Sally was ordered to take her out. But Anderson had foiled Sally's plan. He had followed her to the church where Jessica was now a pastor, and he had arrived just in time to see her attacking his daughter. Anderson had pulled out his weapon and shot Sally, killing her instantly. It was a moment that still haunted him, but he knew it had been necessary to save his daughter's life. With Sally out of the picture, Anderson was determined to finally bring Peter Mulligan's father to justice. But Mulligan was slippery, and he always seemed to be one step ahead. Anderson knew he needed to play this smart, or he would end up just like Jessica, in prison, a victim of Mulligan's manipulations. Anderson began digging into Mulligan's past, trying to find any evidence that could lead to his arrest. He discovered that Mulligan had a long list of enemies, and most of them had either disappeared or been silenced in some way. It was clear that Mulligan was not afraid to do whatever it took to protect his secrets. One day, while Anderson was searching through Mulligan's financial records, he stumbled upon something that made his jaw drop. Mulligan was using his vast wealth to fund illegal operations, including drug trafficking and money laundering. This was the break Anderson had been waiting for. He immediately brought the evidence to his superiors, and they launched a full-scale investigation. But Mulligan wasn't going down without a fight. He had powerful connections in law enforcement and the judicial system, and he used them to try and discredit Anderson's evidence. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Mulligan even went as far as threatening Anderson's daughter, telling her that she would pay dearly for her father's interference. But Jessica was strong, and she refused to be intimidated. She stood by her father's side and supported him as he tirelessly worked to bring Mulligan to justice. And finally, after months of legal battles and intense interrogation, Mulligan was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison. Anderson and Jessica finally had closure, and they could begin to move on from the traumatic events that had torn their family apart. As Anderson and Jessica sat down for a quiet dinner to celebrate their victory, Anderson couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and satisfaction. He had vowed to never give up on finding the truth, and he had kept that promise. And now, with Mulligan behind bars, he could finally rest easy, knowing that his daughter was safe and justice had been served. But just as Anderson was about to take a bite of his meal, Jessica's phone rang. She answered and her face immediately paled. Anderson could hear the panic in her voice as she spoke to the person on the other end of the line. When she hung up, she turned to her father with tears in her eyes. "It's Sally's sister," she said, her voice shaking. "She wants to meet with us. She says she has some information about Mulligan. She claims that her sister Sally was just a pawn in his game. She stated that Sally killed before killing her twin sister, who was the original Sobriety House manager." Anderson's heart skipped a beat. Could this be true? Had Sally been used and manipulated by Mulligan, just like Jessica? He knew he had to meet with her sister and find out the truth once and for all. The next day, Anderson and Jessica met with Sally's sister, and she told them everything. She revealed that Mulligan had promised to help Sally get her life back on track if she did his bidding. And when Sally realized that she had been set up by Mulligan to take the fall for Peter's death, she had turned on him. But Mulligan would stop at nothing to protect his reputation and his illegal activities, and he had ordered Sally to attack Jessica to keep her quiet. Anderson's heart ached for Sally. She had been a victim, just like Jessica. But now, thanks to her sister's testimony, justice could finally be served. As Anderson and Jessica left the meeting, a weight was lifted off their shoulders. They could finally put this nightmare behind them and move on with their lives. Detective Andrell Anderson had faced many challenges in his career, but nothing compared to the heartbreak and turmoil of this case. But through it all, he had never given up, and with the support of his daughter, he had finally brought down a powerful and corrupt mastermind. And that, to him, was the greatest victory of all. Chapter 15. Jessica's Pain. Jessica Hernandez had been dating a minister in the church there. She sat in the elegant church, her fingers intertwined in a silent plea as she watched the man she loved stand at the altar, a beaming smile gracing his face as he officiated a wedding. The golden sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, casting a warm glow over the peaceful scene, but within Jessica's heart, a storm raged. She studied Max, the charming and charismatic minister whom she had believed to be the epitome of goodness and grace, but a flicker of doubt crept into her mind, clouding her adoration. The catalyst: one fateful day, Jessica's intuition led her to witness a shocking scene. A scene that shattered the illusion of perfection she had woven around Max. In a dark alley behind the church, she saw him locking lips with another woman, his hands tangled in her hair with a familiarity that made Jessica's stomach churn. The icy sting of betrayal seeped into Jessica's bones, and she knew that she could no longer turn a blind eye to the truths that lay hidden beneath the surface of their relationship. The midpoint determined to confront Max and unravel the web of deceit that surrounded him, Jessica embarked on a relentless quest for the truth. Through painstaking efforts and a network of allies she had never expected to rely on, Jessica unearthed a shocking revelation. Max was not merely a two-time betrayer, but a cunning con artist who had preyed on the vulnerable for his own selfish gain. Armed with this damning evidence, Jessica believed she had finally outsmarted Max and stripped away his facade of lies, little knowing that the danger loomed closer than she could have ever imagined. The bad guys close in as the walls of deceit began to crumble around him. Max's true colors emerged with a venomous intensity. Enraged by Jessica's audacity in challenging him, Max unleashes a wave of threats and manipulation, pulling the strings of power to silence her cries for justice. With his dark influence tarnishing her reputation and sowing seeds of doubt among those she held dear, Jessica found herself teetering on the edge of a precipice, the safety of solid ground disintegrating beneath her feet. The all-is-lost moment in a heart-wrenching twist of fate, the dam of truth that Jessica had fought so valiantly to breach seemed to repair itself, ensnaring her in a suffocating quagmire of hopelessness. Max's mastery of deception cast a long shadow over her attempts at liberation, leaving Jessica stranded in a landscape of despair, her previously unwavering resolve now fractured and fragile. The abyss of defeat yawned before her, threatening to swallow her whole in its unforgiving embrace. The break into three in the depths of her darkest hour, a tiny flame of resilience flickered into life within Jessica's soul. The lessons she had learned through her arduous journey illuminated a path forward, a path fraught with uncertainty yet pulsing with the potential for redemption and reclamation of her stolen agency. With newfound purpose and steely determination, Jessica shed the shackles of fear and complacency, mustering the courage to face Max once more, armed not just with unmasking the truth, but with an unwavering belief in her own strength and worth. The finale, in a breathtaking crescendo of clashing wills and raw emotions, Jessica finally brought Max to justice, his carefully crafted empire of lies crumbling to dust in the harsh light of truth. The cheers of triumph that echoed in the aftermath were deafening, but amidst the chaos, Jessica stood alone, her gaze locked on the distant horizon, her heart heavy with the unspoken words of a love lost but never forgotten. The future stretched before her, an unknown landscape of limitless possibilities and boundless potential, but one thing remained unchanged, the fierce resilience that burned bright within her, a beacon of hope that would guide her through the darkest of nights towards the dawn of a new beginning. Detective Andrell Anderson sat in his cluttered office, the faint hum of the city outside mingling with the soft chirping of his mechanical creations. Little robots scuttled around the room, bringing him tools and materials as he tinkered away, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. As a detective/inventor, he was known for his brilliant mind and innovation with some creations, but there was always a hint of sadness behind his eyes. It was a constant reminder of his daughter, Jessica, who had followed in his footsteps and now worked for the rival company, Max Inc. The feud between father and daughter had been brewing for years, a mix of professional rivalry and personal hurt. Andrell believed that Jessica's decision to work for Max was a betrayal, a slap in the face to everything he had taught her. And when she announced her latest project, a groundbreaking invention that could potentially put his own creations to shame, he couldn't hold back his disapproval. Their argument that day was the worst they had ever had, harsh words and accusations flying back and forth until Jessica, tears in her eyes, stormed out of his office, leaving Andrell alone with his regrets. In the days that followed, Andrell couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of his stomach. He tried to bury himself in his work, to focus on his own inventions and forget about the rift between him and his daughter, but it was no use. The realization that he may have pushed Jessica away for good weighed heavily on his heart, and he knew he had to make things right. With a sense of determination, he set out to mend their fractured relationship and support her new project, no matter his own misgivings. Yet, even as he reached out to Jessica with an olive branch, offering his help and expertise, he could sense the hesitation in her, the walls she had put up between them. Just when Andrell thought they were making progress, a shocking discovery turned his world upside down. The project Jessica was working on for Max Inc. was not just a rival invention. It was a dangerous weapon, capable of untold destruction in the wrong hands. Fatherly instincts kicked into overdrive as he realized the grave danger his daughter was in, and he made a solemn vow to do whatever it took to stop the weapon from being unleashed, even if it meant risking everything he held dear. As Andrell and Jessica delved deeper into the dark underbelly of Max Inc., the shadows of the corporation closed in around them. They were relentlessly pursued by shadowy figures, their every move watched and sabotaged. Andrell felt the weight of his past mistakes bearing down on him, the guilt of driving his daughter away pushing him to the brink. And just when he thought they had uncovered the truth behind the weapon, it all slipped through their fingers, leaving them stranded and vulnerable. In a moment of crushing defeat, Andrell's worst fears were realized. Jessica was captured by the enemies they had made, leaving him alone and powerless to save her. It was a bleak moment, the echoes of their broken relationship ringing in his ears. But in his darkest hour, Andrell found a glimmer of hope in the memories of their shared love for tinkering and inventing. He remembered the joy they had once found in creating together, the bond that had once held them close. With newfound resolve, Andrell devised a daring plan to rescue Jessica and finally destroy the weapon that had torn them apart. Drawing on his skills as an inventor and the lessons he had learned along the way, he refused to let despair consume him. In a heart-pounding showdown, Andrell and Jessica worked together to outsmart their enemies, using their ingenuity to turn the tide in their favor. In the end, it was their shared determination and love that led them to victory, as they dismantled the weapon and emerged stronger than before. The scars of the past would always remain, but the bond between father and daughter had been forged anew, shining brighter than any invention they could create. Chapter 16. The Redeemers. Jessica Hernandez had always struggled with addiction. It started with just a few drinks here and there, but soon escalated to vodka and coke on most nights, and narcos on the other nights. She couldn't remember the last time she had been sober for more than a day. Her addiction had cost her everything: her job, her friends, and most recently, her relationship with Max. After their public breakup, Jessica found herself alone and desperate. She tried to drown her sorrows in alcohol and pills, but nothing seemed to numb the pain. Desperate to turn her life around, Jessica decided to go back to the one place that had helped her in the past, the sobriety house she had left years ago. It was a last resort, but she knew she needed help. As she walked through the doors of the sobriety house, Jessica felt a sense of déjà vu. The familiar smell of disinfectant and stale coffee filled her nostrils, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Maybe this time, she can finally get clean for good. But things were different this time. The other residents seemed wary of her, and the staff kept a close eye on her every move. Jessica couldn't blame them. She had left without a word years ago, and now she was back, begging for help. As the days turned into weeks, Jessica struggled to stay sober. The cravings were relentless, and she found herself slipping back into old habits. But she was determined to make it work this time. She had to. One night, as Jessica lay in bed, the urge to drink and take pills became too strong to resist. She snuck out of the sobriety house and made her way to the nearest liquor store. As she downed shot after shot of vodka, she felt a sense of euphoria wash over her. But it was short-lived. As Jessica stumbled back to the sobriety house, she knew she had messed up. She had let herself down, and she had let down everyone who had believed in her. But as she lay in bed, the room spinning around her, she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey to recovery. The next morning, Jessica woke up with a pounding headache and a sense of shame that weighed heavily on her chest. But she also felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this time, she could finally beat her demons and find the peace she had been searching for. As Jessica embarked on her journey to sobriety, she faced countless challenges and setbacks. But with the support of the staff and her fellow residents, she slowly began to rebuild her life. And as she looked back on her past, she realized that her struggles had made her stronger. In the end, Jessica Hernandez emerged from the darkness of addiction a changed woman. She had faced her demons head-on and come out victorious. And as she stood on the steps of the sobriety house, the sun shining down on her face, she knew that she was finally free. Jessica Hernandez discovers that her entire life has been orchestrated by a secret organization known as the Redeemers, who manipulate people's lives in order to test their faith and morality. She learns that all the tragedies and challenges she has faced were carefully planned out to see if she would remain faithful to her beliefs or succumb to temptation. As Jessica delves deeper into the mystery of the Redeemers, she uncovers shocking truths about her past and the people around her. She discovers that Peter's murder was actually staged by the organization to test her loyalty, and that Sally Schaefer was a member of the Redeemers sent to push her to her breaking point. Furthermore, Jessica learns that her real father, Detective Anderson, was also a member of the Redeemers and had been manipulating her life from the beginning. The love triangle between her mother, Detective Anderson, and Antonio was all part of a twisted experiment to see how Jessica would handle betrayal and heartbreak. Feeling betrayed and disillusioned, Jessica must now navigate a world where nothing is as it seems and trust is a luxury she can't afford. As she struggles to find her true identity and purpose, she must decide whether to continue playing the Redeemer's game or break free from their control once and for all. Jessica Hernandez had always been a fighter. Growing up in a rough neighborhood, she had learned early on the importance of standing up for what was right and fighting against injustice. So when she heard about the Redeemer's Games, a series of challenges designed to test a person's commitment to social justice and activism, she knew she had to participate. The games were brutal, pushing Jessica to her limits both physically and mentally. She found herself facing off against powerful opponents, each one more ruthless than the last. But Jessica refused to back down, determined to prove that she was a force to be reckoned with. As the challenges grew more intense, Jessica found herself feeling more alone than ever before. The pressure of the games weighed heavily on her, threatening to break her spirit. But she refused to give up, drawing on her inner strength to push through the obstacles in her path. Finally, after months of grueling competition, Jessica emerged victorious. She had proven herself to be a true champion of social justice and activism, earning the respect of her peers and the admiration of those who had doubted her. But the challenges didn't end there. As Jessica entered college to study psychology, she found herself facing a whole new set of obstacles. Balancing her coursework with her activism work proved to be a challenge, but Jessica was determined to succeed. Despite the odds stacked against her, Jessica persevered. She threw herself into her studies, determined to excel in her chosen field. And as she did, she found herself making new connections and building a network of like-minded individuals who shared her passion for social justice. Slowly but surely, Jessica began to rebuild the successful businessperson she had once been. She used her newfound knowledge and skills to advocate for those in need, fighting for justice and equality wherever she could. Through it all, Jessica never lost sight of her ultimate goal, to make a difference in the world. And as she continued to grow and evolve, she knew that she was on the right path to achieving that goal. In the end, Jessica Hernandez proved that with determination, perseverance, and a commitment to social justice, anything was possible. And as she looked back on her journey, she knew that she had truly found her calling.